we are live. So welcome, guys, to the first of the Caribbean Rum Chronicles. There is no. There is Kelvin.
What's up, people? I was having some trouble logging in.
Okay.
My laptop, I had to use my phone. So I'm using my phone, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we got you now anyway. So welcome on board for the first of the Caribbean Rum Chronicles. It seems as if this platform worked quite well. Hopefully we can make a regular contribution to this and do it on a frequent basis. How long today will last is really no specific platform. I've not had any specific. What did I put in the poster? Till the rum done.
Now, I'm sorry, I was playing around with the sound, but I want to say something.
Go ahead.
You said to me, Roger, that you're glad I've got good internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
There's the man who had the blurred screen for how long?
Oh,
sorry, I had to get that dig in there.
my blurred screen is actually nothing to do with my internet connection. It's my front camera on my phone doesn't focus properly.
I had to get that in there.
Thank you, Lizette. So,
a few people were asking me how did they log in to see this on Facebook.
Right. You can share, as far as I'm aware, you can share the screen as well, you know.
Yeah, I shared it. You can share the link.
Yeah, you can.
What, you share the link on your Facebook, or what is it?
So when it came up in the feed, I just posted it onto my
Has everyone got a drink?
timeline.
Right.
Oh, that is a very good point, actually. I was
stop for a moment and get a drink.
I was taking pictures of cocktails or cocktail ingredients for like a still life thing, and I did have a drink of rum earlier, but I think so maybe I'll pick because it's you. Maybe I'll have some rivers or something. Wait.
What's the spirit?
It might be a little much though. I usually prefer my rivers in a pina colada or something.
At this time as well.
It's 7 o'clock on Sunday. I have work tomorrow, so drinking a shot of rivers now is probably.
I'm gonna go and get myself a drink.
Talking about rivers, you heard who's taken the distribution of rivers?
Yeah. You.
Luca.
Who?
Luca.
Oh, there was a lot of talks from before. Yes, he had been there a few times.
So he has global distribution of rivers
and stuff.
Okay.
And I don't think Rivers produced enough in order to have a global distribution. But I think he's investing in a new still there.
He did. He was investing some time ago.
Right.
Yeah. That conversation has been going on. That must be about 2 years of back and forth with them. So.
Right. Well, that's going to be interesting because Rivers is such an iconic rum for the region and for Grenada.
Absolutely.
You ever anybody not had Rivers?
No, I know Rivers. I reckon it would do well.
Rivers.
It would do well, Rivers.
Rivers is.
I need a new bottle though.
Yeah, you look like it, but Rivers is. You could easily be mistaken for thinking that Rivers is Jamaican because it's got that hogo, that funk, and that's quite interesting. How do they drink Rivers in Grenada?
Straight, always water, always coke.
Yeah, water, I would expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really the way it's consumed here.
Right.
There's all sorts of ways, but generally the Rivers man will drink it and then I'll knock back some water afterwards.
Right. And I think that's pretty much.
I'm not sure why.
That is pretty typical of Caribbean overproof culture.
Yes.
The older generation will just knock it back.
Definitely.
And it's amazing how they do it because I mean you're talking about some high proof rum.
Yeah.
You know?
Very.
And
I'm going to get my drink. 1 sec. You guys can see talking. I'm right here.
Now, would you be having ice with overproof in the Caribbean?
They wouldn't have ice.
No ice.
They would knock it back in the shop.
They'd have ice and water. They'd have the water with ice. They don't put anything in the rum. They don't want. They tell you they don't want to dilute it, or they don't want to mess up the taste of the rum. I had a friend. The only girl I know who would she wouldn't have rum and coke like any like I'd never seen anybody do it until I met her. She would tell me she don't want any coke in her rum, so she would shoot the rum.
Well, just a quick hello. Hi, Jerry. Good that you've joined the conversation. I hope our English is not too is clear enough for you. I know you speak good English, okay? Jerry Gittney. I don't know how many of you know Jerry Gittney, one of the one of the gods of agricole. We have Milton from Don Q, who's joined us today. Welcome, Milton, and happy that you've joined the conversation. Shirley, hello, Shirley. Long time no speak, and then obviously Georgie. And Georgie, Emmanuel, did you tell Georgie that you were doing this?
I don't think I told Georgie actually. You know.
Georgie just counted. But I mean, yeah. So I mean, fundamentally, one of the things I wanted to do today was obviously introduce each of you, or well, you can introduce yourselves and your Caribbean experiences and talk about today. Specifically, your early experiences of drinking rum in the Caribbean, and you know, talk about not just those early experiences, the brands, how you drank it, and what did it lead to in terms of your rum habits, and all of you here are all involved in rum in some shape or form. Most people know me in terms of as a distributor and an importer of rum, and I do a lot of talks on rum. Manny is bar manager at Lucky Cane and a number of other places. Head bartender, is that fair?
Head bartender, yeah.
Head bartender, yeah. Mark, who is rumbling. Manny, by the way, Manny means, sorry I keep calling him Manny, but that's Emmanuel. So just in case you're not sure who Manny is.
That's me.
Mark is rumbling. And rumbling run a number of and he can tell you a number of events, does rum bars across the country for a number of different venues and a number of different sort of sporting events, etc. Kelvin, I don't know what the TRD is. I figured that he'll tell us what the TRD is at some point. But Kelvin, the rum doctor, isn't it? Is what your nickname is? Oh, that's what the rum doctor. That's what the TRD is. Huh? And Kelvin,
yes,
obviously,
that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, very much into doing flavored rums, and he can tell us a little bit about that at some point. And then Lizette runs a guest house in Grenada, and she's the only one here that is actually speaking from the Caribbean, called Rum Bar Retreat. And
with good internet.
Yeah, with good internet, and she does master classes in Grenada on rum. So everybody here has some connection with rum in some shape or form. Who wants to start off talking about their rum experience in the Caribbean? Anybody in particular, or do I have to pick?
You pick, Roger. Since you are the host, why don't you pick?
Well, okay. Well, I'll kick off in terms of growing up in Jamaica. My first stint, there was very little rum experience because I left when I was 9 years old, and came to London to do senior education, and went through the whole education thing. Left university and then went back home again, and that was when my real rum culture started in the Caribbean, and in Jamaica in particular. Was quite fascinating growing up that the islands are very insular in terms of their rum culture and their rum backgrounds. We don't, so they drink their own produce. They don't. Traditionally, they didn't have a lot, and probably still don't have a lot of respect for other people's rum. So, if you're in Jamaica, you drink Ray and Appleton. If you're in Trinidad, you probably drink Fernandez, or and Grenada, you're going to drink your Rivers, and we don't really, interesting enough, see a lot of brands across the Caribbean. So my early days of drinking actually was Ray and Nephew, strangely enough, and not Appleton. I don't know what it is about Ray and Nephew, but I just love the taste of it. And that was my early days of drinking Ray and Nephew. And I remember my uncle one day called me, and I used to stay with. I stayed with him, and he called me one day, and he says, "I see you like drinking rum." And I went, "Yes. Where are you going with this?" He says, "Good. Well, if you like drinking rum, you need to learn how to drink it. So make sure you're ready at 8 p.m. You're coming with me." All right. And I went, "Yep, okay." So he took me to his rum bar, traditional old school rum bar. And we were drinking Ray all night. And some of the lessons he gave me stood for a hell of a long time with me. And one of the two things I remember he said, never drink rum with a fizzy drink, and you never drink rum with anything sweet. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, but surely that's how everybody enjoys it. He says, well, unless you want to get drunk, keep away from fizzy drinks and keep away from sweet drinks, because that's going to help contribute to drunk. So I said, well, what do you drink it with? He says, you either drink it neat, you drink it with water, or coconut water, or milk. And I bet you a lot.
Milk.
Wow.
Ray and Nephew and milk is actually
yeah.
It actually is very tasty. And then he said during the session, if you're at a decent bar, you'll have snacks, and the snacks will be something that's very peppery, and you should have snacks in between drinking so that it clears your nasal passages and gives you the sense of feeling a bit sober.
He was serious.
Oh God, yeah.
He was good.
Oh God, yeah. And that was my serious lesson in rum drinking. And I carried on drinking Ray and Nephew for some time, and it was my go-to rum. Occasionally, if I wanted a rum and coke, I'll have a Appleton and well, not Coke. In Jamaica, it would be Pepsi, so I'd have an Appleton and Pepsi. But I remember, Ray was always my go-to, and I remember when I was about 27 years old, and it was a New Year's Eve party in Jamaica. I went to a New Year's Eve party, and I remember drinking an entire bottle of Ray and Nephew to myself.
Wow.
That night, and drove everybody home.
Wow. Did you have snacks?
Right, and that was, and in fact, that worried me so much that I was able to drink an entire bottle of Ray, and I didn't feel. Obviously, if there was, back in those days, if there was breathalyzers, I would have been done. But we didn't have. We didn't have that in Jamaica or the Caribbean back then.
Wow.
And it worried the hell out of me, because I thought, am I getting addictive to Ray and Nephew? If I can drink a whole bottle and it does nothing to me, right, then I better cut back on Ray and Nephew. And that was my switch from Ray, and that's when I started to drink red rum, as we would call it in Jamaica. And that same uncle also told me that red rum is not good for you. And that's quite interesting, because across the Caribbean, we are a white rum culture.
Yeah.
very much a white. I don't know. Everybody else can speak their own story, but it has been all about white rum is clean. Apparently, you know, it's unadulterated and it's clean and it's good for you, and you don't get drunk on it. I've never known any rum that you can't get drunk on. If you drink enough of it, then you're going to get drunk. So, that was my initial stories about rum. So let's take it down the road, Emmanuel.
Right. So my rum relationship is, there's two forms of it. So in my working practice, I am the head bartender at Lucky Cane, which is a sugarcane based bar. So we have rums from all over the planet. We actually redistill rums into spiced rums on site there. But originally, my interactions with rum would have been in Barbados. My mum moved to Barbados when I was young, which is strange because none of my family are from Barbados. My origins are Jamaican and Antiguan, but my mum likes Barbados. I'm not sure why. So when I was growing up, I'd go there for the summer. I'd go there for crop over, and it's a quick, fast introduction to rum and drinking culture. I was a little bit wet behind the ears, and then soon learned quickly how not to ruin my evening. You know, it's very different the way they drink rum in the Caribbean to they do here. I mean, the rum and coke is the only drink that you're introduced to when you're young in the UK, and then when you get there, it's you ask for some rum and you get a bottle. So that was a new experience of mine. And then preceding that, I've learned how to create rum drinks that are, you know, palatable to the public, because in the UK there's been a long period of time where people have been drinking bad rum, so their education has not been particularly, they don't receive rum particularly well until recently, and I think that's moving forward. And so, you know, now we're introducing people at Lucky Cane to interesting drinks with interesting rums, not the things they might have come across before. So yeah, that's how I.
What brands of rum would you have drank?
When I was young, it would have been Rare Nephew. When I was 18, that was the brand of rum I was introduced to first. I think kind of just because it was the most potent I could access. And then in Barbados, it was all Mount Gay. My entire family all drink Mount Gay rum religiously. If you go to someone in my family's house and there's no Mount Gay there, you're going to be disappointed. I find it funny that in Barbados, Mount Gay is much more popular than anything from Foursquare, but Foursquare, critically acclaimed, is so popular in the rest of the world. It's an interesting dichotomy there.
And it's quite interesting as well that in Barbados, one of Foursquare's rums, ESA Fields, is actually the #1 selling rum in Barbados.
Is it?
It is, yeah. ESA Fields is the #1 selling rum in Barbados. So that's quite fascinating. That maybe you'd have thought Mount Gay because of the Mount Gay being the big brand. And I'm sure in the hotels and so on, they'd probably drink more Mount Gay, but quite interesting that the locals drink ESA Fields.
I can't say I've had ESA Fields. I've only heard about it in the conversations that I've been privy to with Richard in the last, during quarantine, to be fair.
Right, it's a white rum, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I've never even seen it, to be honest with you. I never.
Yeah, I've had ESA Fields, and it's
kind of got this. It's not very flavorful.
It's a clean white. It is a very clean white one, isn't it? It's very.
Yeah, I mean, but what I'm saying is, I can't imagine a tourist coming all the way going, "Oh, I must try a Fields." Their go is going to be Mount Gay because they love that. The aged rums, definitely from a foreign perspective, is or at least variety. Like they like the variety, whereas for the hard laborers who are Bajan, they want something that's going to work quickly and isn't going to dent their pocket, so they can still pay their rent and feel. Right.
Yeah, before I move on to Mark to give you stories, just a quick couple of shout outs. Keegan says hello. Eva Dulat says hello. Manny Holly says hello, Emmanuel and Roger. I'm just, I think that so far that's a feed I've picked up. So yes.
Okay.
Mark,
yeah. Well, I guess to be fair, I didn't really drink rum. Even though I am Trinidadian, I didn't drink rum in Trinidad. When I was living there, I left when I was 20, and I think my first experience with rum was probably getting drunk on rum cake as a child, and I wasn't supposed to. I was given the cake by my dad, and obviously, you're not supposed to give a kid cake with rum in it. But hey, I get drunk in it, and my mom obviously gets very upset, and there's a whole story that goes along. Apparently, I fell asleep and then woke up in the carny with the hospital. I was fine, and that's when she realized that, oh, what happened? Well, I was giving him cake to eat. Subsequent to that, to be honest, growing up in Trinidad, I didn't drink loads. I probably drank, a bit, but I was a relatively, non-alcoholic kid. I left Trinidad. I think the first thing I had to drink properly was when I was 21. I started drinking whiskey with my dad at home, but I'm a taste drinker, so I was never into really getting drunk. It was I always wanted to taste, and I'm interested in flavor, so I drank whiskey and really liked the flavor, so became obsessed with whiskey as I got older, and went from blended whiskey to single malt whiskey, and then became even more obsessed with whiskey. And then I came here, which you can't really, if you live in this close to Scotland, it's not a bad place to kind of get exposed to. But I really got into rum via doing events. And when Rumbling started as an event, it required me to do a bit more research into rum as a product. And with that super geeky whiskey knowledge coming forward, it just kind of connected to the rum, and it was all right. It was like, okay.
Oh my goodness, Sheena Shepherd from Trinidad has just said Fernandez is life.
Well, some would say so, yeah. But when I started really getting into rum, as I say, was here, and as my experiences at home, I've kind of reconnected to rum now whenever I visited, and I'm very interested now in how people in the Caribbean drink it. I think I'm keen for us to kind of love it the way that I learned to love it here with meeting people like Lizette and Roger in the early days. You guys are some of the first people who I met that one helped Rumbling as an event. So I'm always very appreciative of you all for just coming along and buying a ticket and just being honest with us in terms of feedback and so on. But as time has gone on now, obviously, I kind of appreciate rum differently now. Where I want people to appreciate it. I want us in the Caribbean to kind of love it, as I was saying, the same way, so that we could all. So when people go there, it's not just about giving them the strongest thing to drink; it's about giving them the best thing to drink. I think that I think my story of rum from a Caribbean perspective is an odd one in that I'm probably now more of a rum drinker than I ever would have been if I had stayed in the Caribbean, because the level of appreciation for it for me wasn't there. Possibly now it's increasing, but
it's quite interesting. One of the comments you made, which was that how you grew up on whiskey, because I learned to drink whiskey in Jamaica. Right?
Yeah.
And people don't understand how popular whiskey is I think Dewars, Jamaica is one of the biggest market for Dewars per capita. It's something ridiculous. And
I wouldn't doubt that. I mean, in times when in the 70s, I think people when people of color started to, become more of the middle class and, get into jobs that were a bit, that weren't basic jobs, and there was more money available to them.
Whiskey.
You could buy. That was a symbol of status. You could afford to, if you're drinking rum, as you said, Elizabeth, people that buying rum, they want to get drunk, but they want to be able to pay their bills. If you could drink whiskey, you could get drunk nice and pay your bills. So that was
and look good doing it.
Huh?
And
Sorry?
look good doing it.
Right, and look good doing it, and you know that's a big part of the process.
Yeah.
Interesting enough on that. Before I move to Kelvin, interesting enough on the issue of whiskey and rum. Somebody sent me a picture of a guy in St. Lucia, and he's thanking the Prime Minister.
Oh yes, I saw that.
For freeing up the rum, because it was banned in St. Lucia during the coronavirus. So he's got a sign thanking the Prime Minister for freeing up the rum.
Right.
And if you look next to him, is a bottle of Dewar's.
I saw that. I was like, that's not wrong.
Oh, really?
And it just,
Okay.
And the interesting thing is growing up in the Caribbean, you realize that all spirits is rum.
Yes.
Yes. My father actually told me that as well when going to look at my father's solution. And the same thing he was saying, that they will drink and they'll say, "Oh, I get drunk on rum." Even in Curacao, the same thing. No, and they won't drink rum. They won't drink it like whiskey.
Yeah, but it's all rum.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's funny that you said that, because I'm having conversation with my dad. He said exactly the same thing. Yeah, everything is rum.
Everything's rum. Every spirit is rum, and that is just the culture of the Caribbean. We're going out to drink rum tonight, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're drinking rum.
Yep.
Yeah, everything is rum unless
Yes.
it's Hennessy or any other brand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just rum.
It's just rum. It's just.
That's so interesting, because
Johnny
I thought
Walker,
it was
Johnny
just a thing that my
Walker,
father
but
would
rum
say.
is rum.
But hearing other people saying the same thing. Yes.
So
Yeah,
Kelvin,
crazy.
what's your story?
Crazy.
Kelvin, what's your story?
Well, my story. Okay. First of all, I'd like to apologize because I keep looking here because I'm using my phone and my laptop, and it just threw me all off because my laptop wasn't connected. But anyway, I'm originally from Curacao. So Curacao is a Dutch Caribbean island off the coast of Venezuela. My father is St. Lucian, as I mentioned. My mother's Jamaican. My grandfather is Trinidadian, and my grandmother is St. Lucian. So it's a special fried rice, a mix up of everything. So my first experience with rum was actually in St. Lucia, drinking Bounty rum. I don't know if you guys know the Bounty rum. There's Bounty rum and there's Crystal Lime. To be fair, my father was not a rum drinker. He was a whiskey drinker, as Mark. As Mark said, he was a Johnny Walker drinker, right? And but back in his days, growing up in St. Lucia, he was drinking Mount Gay. So Mount Gay was the go-to rum in St. Lucia. Now, obviously, I don't know why they pick Mount Gay rum, because St. Lucia has their own brands as well. But at the time, I didn't know what was the one that was running things at that time. So, but my first experience was Bounty rum, and coming back to St. Lucia, coming back to Curacao. Curacao is not really a big rum culture. They will drink rum. We have one or two people drinking rum, but they would be more going to the whiskey, to the Hennessy, and also the champagne. But because I was in a Caribbean family in the sense of St. Lucia, Trinidad, and also Jamaica, friends of families, when they come to like parties, I remember as kids they would come, and you will have alcohol galore. You have the barbecues and all the beach parties, and what will be in there will be the rare nephew will be there as well. And you will have the mix of the Mount Gay, and that's how you take a little sample of it, Or your mom, as most people have experienced, that their mom used to give them a little sip. So that was how the old rum came into play. But where the love for the rum actually started for me was when I first had the whole tea punch, which I remember my first brand was La Moni. And although I knew of tea punch, but I never tried it because my father's grandmother was St. Lucian, who actually lived in Martinique, I used to give my father a tea punch at the age of 8 to 9. She was giving them tea punch, but not as strong as we know it now. It would be like more of a liqueur.
Mm-hmm.
So like a liqueur, so it would be like more of a planteur. So they call it, that's what they call planteur. So they'll mix it with like fruit juices, and they'll put spices, put like nutmeg, cinnamon, and etc. just to spice it up. So she would give that to them, but she knew about the tea punch. And as my father grew older, he started drinking tea punch as well from time to time. But rum was never his big thing. So for me, traveling to Guadeloupe for the very, very, very first time, seeing how agricole rum is, how the whole rum arrangé, which used to be called punch, but it became rum arrangé after. See how they put all the infusions of the rum in this agricole style rum. And then when I went to Reunion Island, that was when it blew me off. It's like, wow, these guys are putting all kind of infusions into these kind of rums. And I remember I had one where that had mint sweets in it, which was the most unusual thing I saw. It had mint sweets in the bottle. And that's where the love of the whole rum arrangé, flavoring rums and spice rums, if you want to call it, started for me. And that's why I like that kind of style of rum. Although all rums are very, very unique in their own. But that kind of stuff, because it's so kind of like, it comes across like a mad scientist, you're just taking stuff and you're putting stuff together and you're experimenting. So yeah, that for me was just like really fascinating. And I went to Martinique, I went to Saint Martin, and I went to Cayenne, so all those French Caribbean islands. So yeah, but for me it was Bounty rum in St. Lucia. We drink it when they make their rum punch.
It's quite interesting that you said that that in St. Lucia if your dad drank rum, you drink Mount Gay. Now, again, was that a status symbol? I don't want to drink the local rum. I'm drinking something of quality.
Well, it's not only that. It's from seeing his peers, so his uncles, his grandfather's his father's friends and his grandfather's friends. They will be drinking the Mount Gay, there's another called Duas from not Duas, Den Ross. Sorry, Den Ross from St. Lucia. So yeah, Den Ross. So he was just like, he's seeing his peers drinking it. So it's a case of, you know what, I can drink white rum too. Let me go knock down the white rums, but not having the knowledge of different styles of rums. You have the aged rum, you have the barrel oak aged rums, and stuff like that. So he just drank it just because it's a white rum. If you can drink a overproof 63% or more white rum, a big shot. Yeah. So the knowledge of actually drinking rum at his age, at the time when he was there, was it wasn't that much of a big thing. So his palate never took to that drinking. So he just said, you know what, I'm not drinking rum. And I remember he told me that he got very, very ill off of drinking Mount Gay rum, and that put him off. So it was a case of the knowledge at that time of rum for him was not there as it is for me now. You can actually distinguish the different styles of rums. They have the English style, you have the French style, you have the Spanish style, you have copper pot still, you have column still, you have the blend. So you have all these little things that's there that gives you different flavor profiles. So that's the interesting part of growing up.
And have you seen a very different culture across because you're obviously multi-island. Have you seen a very different culture in how rum is drank on the different island and different countries?
Of course, yeah, yes, 100%. I mean, most of the places that I always visit, obviously French Caribbean, and as many people may know, that if you go to let's pick Guadeloupe, and if you go on a visit to different houses or different parties, you're definitely going to be drinking a tea punch. Yeah. Tea punch is the wow, you're drinking that now.
Come on, Mark, I see you grabbing.
Exactly.
Come on, man, you finish.
Yeah,
exactly. So
I need to get a drink. Yeah.
That's it, Benny. Yeah.
If I should have one of these again, or if I should have something else. So I just.
I'll come back. I'll come back to some more questions, Kelvin. But Lizette, let's hear from you.
The boss lady herself, man.
No problem.
I was waiting for Mark to fill my glass. Yeah. I will say that actually, I remember the first place I remember seeing or knowing what rum was, because I think it's really difficult. I was when I thought about it, I was trying to think, well, where did I first see rum? Because you're so surrounded by it as a Caribbean person that I can't remember the very first place that you see it. It's on my mum's cabinet shelves. She used to soak her fruits with rum all year round. My grandma used to have this living room where you'd go in and it had all these ornaments and dollies and stuff. You weren't allowed.
Yeah, same. That is the same.
And every Saturday I had to clean that room.
Right.
Yeah.
On the buffet, they have lots of different things. Stones, wine, different rum. The rum she always had there was Captain Morgan, though.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because I think it's what they could get in the cash and carry in the UK.
Right.
But whenever people would just come from Grenada, the doorbell would ring, and my gran had arthritis, so she'd send me, "Child, go and open the door." And I'd open the door, and there would be Auntie whoever with a calabash full of spice, cocoa tea, ball, and a rum. And that rum would always be Clarkscore.
Right.
Always be Clarkscore. And it had a black and white label, and it was white. And I'd give it to my gran, and the first thing she'd do is open it and pour it in with the fruits. She'd pour it in with the fruits, and she said that would be good for the Christmas cake.
Right, okay.
And that's what she did with that. But as I said, she'd have the rum.
Was it a normal strength Clarkscore?
It was overproof.
It was an overproof.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. But I never really paid attention to rum at that time. It was just something, like I said, it was always surrounding me. But the first time I paid attention to rum, I'll never forget, I was probably about anywhere between 8 and 10. And my mum, and they were quite sociable people. My family were a sociable family in Shepherd's Bush. And they used to have these blues parties.
Oh my goodness, Shubeens.
Mark is going for some more. Wow, guy, going in.
I didn't open this in the end, so I decided to go.
I'm going to knock this one back next.
I love it. And I used to be in the bar. Can you believe? I'm about 10.
Right.
I used to be in the bar, and I used to be serving rum and coke all night, Hennessy and Coke, canais, all these kind of drinks.
So 10 years old, you were making whiskey and coke?
Well, no, the whiskey was Bell's. They used to drink Bell's.
Right, yeah. I remember Bell's. Yeah.
But the rum...
You had to earn your keep, right? If you work in the party, you can't drink. You had to do something. So bartending is the job. I was the bartender on the boat. I couldn't drink. I go sailing with my pops and his friends.
You're muted. I can't
hear you. Pull no rope. Everybody had to have a job. So your job is to make the drinks. Me, I smaller, but that's my job. So
it was my job. I used to.
It doesn't matter how old you are.
No, it didn't matter. And they didn't see it as anything like, oh, she's underage or anything. I was quite on the ball, like, I'd say, and you'd see all these old guys with their felt hats coming to the bar, and they'd take one, and then towards the end of the night they'd be like, and it was just the way it went. It was to raise money to buy a new sofa or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at that time, I remember Lamb's, Navy Rum, and Captain Morgan.
Okay, quite interesting. And how as you're the only lady in the group, right? Is there a different perception in the Caribbean towards women drinking rum?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Actually, what I would say is, what I notice in the Caribbean is there's a very big divide between the drinkers and the non-drinkers. There's actually a lot of non-drinkers in the Caribbean.
Right. And you talk about the modern day generation, the younger generation.
Yeah.
I think there's also, remember, in some islands there's that very heavy religious element, and I think in some islands with the whole evangelical Christian movement, very similar to I would suspect to parts of Africa and so on, where you have people who they not drinking for is a sin. They're not.
Well, that's,
yeah.
I think
What amazed me, sorry, I didn't. Yeah, what amazed me is the amount of bartenders there who don't drink. There's a lot. You meet bartenders and they'll be like, "No, I'm sorry, I don't drink, but I'll make you a mean cocktail." But they just don't drink. And I think there's a massive taboo about people who allow alcohol to ruin their lives and people who drink.
I think growing up, and I can say in particularly for myself, that same uncle who taught me how to.
Is it me?
Is it? Where's that coming? We've got a little interference somewhere, but that same uncle who taught me how to drink rum.
Yes.
Right. Rum killed him.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Rum killed him. Right. And I think as well, a lot of younger people have looked at that generation, and they were, if not fully fledged, but borderline alcoholics. I mean, they drank and drank and drank. I mean, it was a way of life for them. So maybe there's more younger people, and especially a lot more people are more conscious of their health, and we've seen a whole new wave in terms of people's attitudes towards keeping their bodies healthy and keeping fit and so forth. So there is a culture which is quite interesting when we talk about growing up, and even in that short space of time. And when we go back home, how much has it changed? And I can say, for example, in Jamaica, you don't see a young person shooting Ray, right? That's not the dumb thing anymore.
Well,
right?
It's funny you say that, because a couple of years ago, I remember there was punching, which is our equivalent. Punching became very popular, and punching had marketing budget, and they were punching girls, and people were drinking punching and champagne, and it was, and then obviously, soca music. There's a lot of, be drunk or have a good time as alcohol induced fun is a big part of that. But I thought, whilst I would probably think that yes, there are quite a few people in Trinidad.
I can't really hear Mark at all, I don't know if anybody else can hear him, but I can't hear him.
I'm hearing him fine.
Yeah, I can't hear him at all.
Yeah,
I'm hearing him really fine.
I mean, it's your
Okay, maybe it's just me then.
That's you, Calvin.
Sorry.
Sorry, continue, Mark.
But yeah, I remember thinking that what you were saying there should have been the case, Roger. In that times moved on, people are older, people, more science out there. And didn't have a budget where they push in alcohol at the young party crowd, and there are people who they drinking punch, and that's what they're drinking. And I thought it was nuts, because
to be honest, there was a whole culture change in Ray Nephew realized that the old men who would shoot it and have a glass of water on the side. that wasn't how young people wanted to appreciate it. And young people is your biggest audience for alcohol consumption, right? So Ray Nephew went on this whole marketing campaign in Jamaica of changing how it should be drunk. And one of the drinks that obviously evolved out of that was Ray and Ting.
Is that how that came about?
Yeah, so it was a whole different culture about how young people should enjoy Ray. And one of the things that, and obviously no company wants to admit to it, because no company wants to admit to it, but you got to remember, young people want to get drunk as cheaply as possible. Yeah, that's right. And therefore, Ray saw an opportunity that, well, why, if you drink Ray's cheap in Jamaica, right? And it's overproof, so you're gonna have a nice drink, and you're gonna get drunk fairly quick, and not for too much money. So that's what young people wanted. So Ray actually repositioned himself on how it should be consumed, and did very well at that. And now it's like you said in Trinidad with puncheon, it is a popular drink amongst young people.
I was very surprised that when it happened. I mean, granted, I think there are more spirits being consumed at home now. Fernandez Black Label is still a locally consumed product. A single barrel was something that Angusser introduced a while ago that I thought I think they should have done more with it outside. That's nice product, but it was locally introduced, and so there's a lot more range of rum to drink. But puncheon they were all over it to the puncheon, and I was like, probably to your point, yeah, people probably drinking it.
I think what I've noticed in the Caribbean, adding to what you're saying as well, Mark, and that you also have to look at the economic situation, the positioning of the working class people here, and a lot of them can afford very fast food, so they cannot afford nice food like Nando's, in terms of grilled chicken, healthy. They'll go for KFC and things like that. And then their choice of drink will be something that, on a Friday night gets to the job quickly, and it's overproof rums mixed with Ting or ginger ale or ginger beer. Yeah. And the real hardcore laborers who don't give a shit, they will drink their white overproof rum, their rivers, with water. And it's just, I think it will culturally stay the same because people just have to get the job done, and these jobs are hard. I mean,
do you have a rum shop culture like that in Grenada and in Jamaica? Because I know in Trinidad, the rum shop culture is very much your bucket of ice, your nip of rum, and your mixer of choice. I mean, the younger people have a mixer. The older guys would probably just have a bottle of water. More times than not, it's tap water. So that is a real low price night where you ain't paying for ice. You buy your rum, they give you a cup. So technically, all you're paying for is the rum. Everything else is just accoutrement.
And the way it's done, an eighth of rum.
Yeah.
And a little medicine bottle.
Can I ask a question? Keegan, come up with a question. Keegan wants to know.
In St. Lucia, they used to, since the 1950s onwards, they used to drink it with water, rum with water. They didn't have any chaser, so it was just water they used to drink it with. I don't know at what point the chaser came into play, but I know for a fact from the 1950s onwards, it was just rum, water, and no chaser. So they used to just drink the shot first and then drink the water after and swirl it around in their mouth and then swallow it down. So that's how I know they used to drink it.
So Keegan wants to know, how does the Caribbean view the increased popularity of rum outside of the region? And has this affected their spirit selection for the well-to-do?
I mean, I could answer the second part of it. I've been home for a little while, maybe two plus years, but I met some older gents a couple of years ago that they had like a rum club, which I was very intrigued by. So it was a bunch of guys close to retired or semi-retired or retired that would get together and everybody bring a bottle of rum. Kelvin, is your thing close to your headphones? You have a crackling noise in the background. Is
Kelvin,
I can't really hear you, know.
mute your microphone a minute, Kelvin. Can you mute your microphone a minute, Kelvin?
There's some interference on my side. Some terrible interference on my side. Can't really hear you, man. Sorry.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah, and those guys.
Sorry, what was the question?
I was asking if you could mute your mic because I was hearing like it crackling in the background. I was wondering if it is that your headphones are down on the counter, and if you move stuff around.
You know, no, it's just that my battery because I'm using my phone and the battery's dying. I mean, this is just threw me off because my laptop is not connected to this. I'm using my phone and so every time I'm connecting the wireless charger, so I have to pull out the earpiece to plug it in because I can't find the router to plug the both earphones and charger together.
Okay.
So so that's why every time when I unplug it.
Maybe
I'm on 26%, so I think
mute your mic because for whatever reason it have a funny
it's
kind of.
It's not there at the moment. It's not there.
It's not there anymore. It's fine now because he has the headphones up here. I think. Yeah. But I found that.
Okay.
I still think that in Jamaica that the well-to-do in Jamaica still drink whiskey, and they're not rum. They're still not rum consumers. I mean, don't get me wrong. That same well-to-do person will go to a party and have a rum, right? And they will have a rum at the party and they'll drink rum and coke or rum and whatever. But in terms of at home, they will drink whiskey.
Here is El Dorado.
Fun?
In Grenada, it's El Dorado.
Interesting.
When I go to these, as they call it, petit bouge events, and they're all walking around, and they go, "Oh, Lisette's the rum lady. You should talk to her about any rum." And I'm like, "Oh God, here we go." And they're going, "The baddest rum, the rum I spent any money on, best rum." 20-something years, man, like, and to them that's it.
And how do they drink that?
Sorry, in a minute, Emmanuel. I just want to add a statement. Keegan asking me if you can get Nando's on the islands, and I just want
no.
Keegan,
But
KFC is God in the Caribbean.
KFC, but there are restaurants. Like grilled
it can survive.
People just don't. People want, like young people, they want KFC.
Yeah. Sorry, Manny, you're going to say something.
I was asking. So the well-to-do, how do they drink rum in the Caribbean? Do they ever drink them in cocktails, or do they just drink them neat?
I can speak for Jamaica. We have no cocktail culture outside of the hotels.
Yeah, I've seen none in Barbados either.
Outside the hotels, there's no cocktail culture. Hotels are not the best either. With all due respect to the hotel, they're not really out. We don't. I've asked a lot. I've asked a lot of friends about would a cocktail bar work in Jamaica for the norm, for the masses or the normal people, and they went, no, we're not interested in cocktails.
Okay, so I understand what you all are saying, but people do make their own concoctions, which I would call a cocktail. I mean, in the little village that I'm from, there's a drink that people drink called pimp juice, and it's Campari, overproof rum. And I don't know what else is in it, man. It's a cocktail, right?
That sounds good.
Not the cocktail.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
not the cocktails that are the traditional ones that we think about when we think of rum. We don't drink daiquiris. We don't drink mai tais. These are not drinks that we don't drink pina coladas. These are not.
But you see, I also think that's a cultural thing because Caribbean people are not very good at calling things names apart from nicknames. So, for example,
But really, okay.
Yeah, I don't think, calling something a Mai Tai is like creating a recipe and saying this is the only way it can be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, people just put things together.
But don't you think the reason why they're not...
Hello, Kusame, I'm putting something together.
Okay.
It tastes good. It's
okay. Okay. But don't you think they don't bother with the whole cocktail side of things because the Caribbean are used to just the white rum overproof style of drink. So they don't worry about the sweets, sweet stuff.
But the thing about it is that technically, I mean, arguably, and I can bring Manny in here because he said he made and one of the things that Manny is going to really help us out, and obviously Mark as well. Well, even you, Kelvin, because obviously you do a lot of cocktails. Is how some of these drinks can be easily adapted. I mean, technically, what is a cocktail? It's what, 3 ingredients, Manny?
It's 3 ingredients. Yeah.
And does ice count as one of those?
You don't need to have ice in the drink for it to be a cocktail, technically.
No, but ice is technically an ingredient. So
I don't know if yes, water's an ingredient.
Water's an ingredient, yeah. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is that a rum and coke with a squeeze of lime is a cocktail.
Well, that's a Cuba Libre, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Cuba Libre,
Yeah. So, and that's a simple drink. But I mean, you're right. The concoctions that we do, and we obviously, all of us must remember there is one cocktail that is commonly consumed in the Caribbean, which is
rum punch. Rum punch. But we don't. Rum punch, probably. I don't know about Grenada, but punch a crème or some Christmas-related milky drink. Obviously. There's not cocktails, but there's the home wines that people will make from fruits. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that happening all over the Caribbean. But I think rum punch is probably the number one home concoction, but nobody would call it a cocktail. And I think as a result, and again, coming into cocktails as as an enthusiast and then starting a business around it, doing the research, understanding how punch, and I have that guy, the Jerry Thomas book, the Bonvinian Companion or whatever. Companion. I bought the book, and a third of the book is dedicated to punch. As the concept of a punch and how important that is to drink. And rum punch is obviously the only punch that I really knew, but we don't really treat it with the kind of reverence that it should be treated as a drink, because rum punch is to say that you go and you just throw some juice and put a little grenadine and throw something in a glass and put some rum in it, and once it's strong and it's sweet, the balance is totally irrelevant. People will drink it, I'm like, that good. That'll get my head bad, and I will drink it. And not taking the time to really not only just follow the little recipe that is the parts recipe, 1 part sour, 2 parts sweet, but just take your time as to what you're putting in it. That's how we treat all. I think my experience, that's how Caribbean people treat all alcohol-related.
I think everything. Look, when it comes to a recipe, any recipe, a Caribbean recipe, right? Everybody has their own take on it. There is no one way to do something. It's like, if you're making your carrigo, you're making it, and this is what you put. Now, of course, there's the basic fixed rules. Yeah, you must use go. I mean, I got to use curry. But in different places, different people use different things, and I think it's because,
but food is treated with more respect than liquid. They treat food in a different way than they treat alcohol. I feel so.
Like the Caribbean have a lot of similarities to each other, as what Lisette said. You know, if you're making a curry goat, you use goat. I mean, and make sure it's curry, because in French Caribbean they use colombo,
Right,
which
but
is
the one thing that I can agree with,
which is a different same thing as curry.
One thing I agree with Mark is when you're back home and they will tell you straight, that's not a good curry goat, right? They will tell you straight, that isn't a good curry goat. My man over there make a good curry goat. My man over there make good pan chicken or whatever. So they're very particular about their food.
Oh, don't get me wrong. In terms of discerning, you can't do the Caribbean palate.
They will never turn around and say that was a bad rum and coke.
No, I tell you something that I have learned living here is that the Caribbean palate is very discerning and is very they know what's good. They can tell. But what I'm trying to respond to is Mark's comment on the fact that he's reading these books and people are writing down recipes and they're saying a Mai Tai should have these 4 things in it. Well, hello, in the Caribbean, nothing should have anything in it apart from the basic principles, which is these, you know, what I'm saying is a rum punch has to have rum in it. No, you can do anything with that.
Well, interesting enough, in Jamaica, one of the key ingredients in a rum punch is this.
What's that?
Exactly.
Wow.
Which is why
that's like the ready-made. Yeah.
Which is why all rum punch is red.
Yeah. But then you know, in all those yeah. But to be fair, in all those kind of drinks, in terms of rum or punch, let's use the word punch. Like as I mentioned, like in French Caribbean, they call it punch. Now, punch is the rum with the infusion of whatever fruits they have.
Yeah.
Right. Now that's called punch. It later on became rum arrangé. So as Lisette said, and yourself, Roger, everybody has their own kind of version of what punch is or curry goat or whatever.
We will create that for a subject
because
of
everything is intertwined, because we are part of the Caribbean. We have the similarities. If you go to one Caribbean place, it will be the same but similar.
When we will,
you know, now that bottle show that I don't know what that is, but that's definitely a punch.
But similarly, if I have a rum punch from you, Roger, today, right, and this is how it is here, I come back to you tomorrow. I ain't getting the same thing. I ain't getting the same thing.
Why?
The content is not that people will document and write. It's a feeling. It's a mood thing. It's your hand. It's because it's how you're feeling. It's emotional.
Together.
Is it also the access to ingredients as well? Because I'm guessing a lot of the things are imported from the States. I'm guessing those syrups. So that kind of limits what you can achieve.
Well, if you don't have any strawberry syrup, then you're going to use raspberry syrup or whatever you've got. Basically. Yeah. So that is one of the questions that I had. One of the questions that we had, and Kelvin, you might be able to answer this because I know Curacao definitely is one of those countries. But somebody asked, is there a culture of homemade rums in bars in the Caribbean? Where people actually create a blend of some sort. And I mean, the rum shops in the Caribbean traditionally used to blend their own rums. I know there's one in the Caribbean, there's one in Curacao, which is a blue rum, which is blended at a shop in Curacao. So, do any of you find in any of the islands? Do you find there's homemade rums in the bars?
Yeah, we have under the counter here,
right?
Which is something you find under the counter, hence the name.
Yeah.
And it comes in a bottle, and it's got like all different spices from the island, and then they pour their overproof rum in it, and over time, because of the headspace, it does get softer and softer. But it pulls loads of the flavor from the bay leaf, the cinnamon, or as they call it, spicewood, the nutmeg, the bois bonnet, and men tend to like it because of the bois bondé inside of it. It's an infusion, and I guess it would be something like an orange, but just with herbs. Maybe oranges with fruit. I don't know.
And you got to remember, technically in the Caribbean, that tradition of making our own spiced rums, or as Kelvin said, our own fruit rums. That was tradition in the Caribbean. Is that you got a rum and then you soak something in it, and you do a maceration that way, and you created your spices. You added your spices, and quite often, and this will be subject of another talk, but quite often a lot of those will be used for medicinal purposes.
Yes.
Yeah, I've had there's a bush in Trinidad called Zepopic.
Yes.
And they say supposedly that Zepopic is good for if you have the cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to Tobago, I think when I was 19 at the time, around 18, 19, around there. I went to visit a friend there, and I went to Tobago with the cold. I get off the boat and we hanging out, and we go to this guy's house, and my friend was like, I kind of sneezed in or something, and I had a little cough, and his brethren was like, come, I give you something, man. Yeah, well, some Zepopic. Now I thinking it's just tea. Like he gonna take the leaf and boil a tea for me. No, it's because it's like a shelf like this in his mother's kitchen. A bunch of bottles, and the bottle in the back, no label on it. It is dusty. He take the bottle down and rub off the dust on the bottle. And it's obviously in the kitchen, so it have a little bit of, a little bit of the oil from, from it being close to the stove or whatever else. And he wipe the bottle down and he pour some in a glass for me and tell me, take a shot of that. So I said, what's that? He said, well, it's Zepopic in rum. So, okay, I never had it before. But I see. And to its credit, it worked. I mean, or it could have been placebo.
Sorry, Lisette, what's that?
This is under the counter.
So it's rum that infused with.
Lisette, sorry, what's?
It's called under the counter.
Bad interference there. I really can't hear, man.
It's called under the counter.
Okay, right.
And it has
that's
lemongrass, which is fever grass, turmeric, bay leaf. I mean, any damn thing you find in your garden that adds nice flavor. Yeah, and then you could put it to drink, or you could put it in cakes. You can add it to food.
So did you make that, Lisette? Did you actually make that?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
So you making your own.
Once again, guys, I have very bad interference. So if you guys ask me a question, because apparently somebody asked me a question at some point and I couldn't even hear it. So forgive me if I don't answer and I look like this because I can't hear it. Because I have some bad interference.
Okay.
But in Curacao, not Curacao, in St. Lucia, my auntie, her husband used to make a moonshine, and they used to call it Mountain Dew. Now I don't know exactly what was in it, but they used to call it Mountain Dew for some very strange reason. So, and Mountain Dew comes from a different thing, whereby the actual brand, the soft drink brand Mountain Dew, they used to call it Mountain Dew in I think it's Kentucky, Tennessee. Right. No, Knoxville, Tennessee. Sorry, Knoxville, Tennessee.
In St. Vincent, they call it Mountain Dew too.
Yes, but from the research I've done, they called it Mountain Dew in the Prohibition times for the law not to know that they're dealing with illegal alcohol. So instead of saying moonshine, they used to say Mountain Dew.
Right.
How would they produce these products?
So I mean, I don't know how true that is, but that's from my findings. That's what I understood, and then that came all the way to the Caribbean.
We will be having a debate at another date on what I call bush rum.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So we'll leave that.
Because everybody has their bush rum, so we will have another debate on that. But I'd like to ask Manny a question, primarily because you're the full-time bartender here. Yeah. Do you see potential for a lot of these drinks out the Caribbean to become good cocktails? I mean, how many bars serve rum punches? Very few.
There's in the UK, unless they're completely rum-focused bars, not many bars will serve a rum punch. And I think
why is that though?
I think it's because people don't really. There's no defined example of what a rum punch is purely, unless you look at a planter's punch. So it's very difficult to penetrate as a rum punch because they're all different. Sometimes they're red. They're very sweet in general. So it's about tailoring that for the market outside of the Caribbean and maybe defining the ingredients that are core. As you say, every rum punch may vary, but there's going to be core notes. Maybe allspice is going to be a core note. Maybe nutmeg, and finding core notes and creating drinks that represent that, and then kind of.
I totally agree with you on that, Manny. In my experience, I learned to make rum punch from Bruce Govaya, actually. Whilst my mom makes a fabulous rum punch, I didn't watch what she did. I did an event with Bruce, and Bruce made this oleo saccharum and then made a punch on top of it, and I didn't really understand what I was. But when I tasted it, I was like, I had never had a drink, I'd never had a punch that had tasted quite so clean and simple. Yeah,
because I mean, originally punch would have been an affluent thing.
Yes, exactly.
So then it's been changed. It's been adopted to make drinks en masse.
Yes.
And it kind of changes the nature of what punch is. Punch is you're meant to really be able to taste the basic ingredients.
Can I also mention that and when I use the term punch doesn't apply just to rum, because you can make punches from different spirits, but is the fact is that the punch died in the cocktail culture because punches were made in bowls, not as individual drinks.
So, originally, it would have been made in large bowls. And a lot of the time, it would be a lot of bars weren't allowed to serve alcoholic drinks after a certain period of time. So then they would start serving these bowl punches, and you would drink them like later in the evening, and they wouldn't be too strong. Punches were generally quite a delicate, like an easy drinking thing that you could drink for a long time, as opposed to being like something that blows the back of your head out.
Right.
So it's
So what do you think will be a way of boosting that rum punch back or in the UK bar scene?
There
make
wasn't
people want to say,
a
give me that rum punch because I know that this one tastes good. From for example, Lucky Cane is the rum punch I want to get.
Yeah. I think
what do you think will give people that feel punch?
I think the first thing you have to do is kind of educate people into understanding rum initially, because a lot of people only drink spiced rum in the UK, and then kind of the wider market is moving away from spiced, and it's about making people understand rum initially, and then making things that are simple. Like successful drinks in the UK are simple. So if you can create a punch that is basic in the same way like a daiquiri is, then I mean that's what's going to be successful.
Well,
I did one today on my show.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. I'll have to. Do you have it online? I'll
Instagram.
Yeah, you have a show of rum punch on Instagram.
Listen, I mean, it's really basic. I'm not claiming to be a bartender, but because at Rumboat Retreat, one of you said earlier about, is it because things are seasonal? Here in the Caribbean, we can only really get what arrives on boats or what's in our gardens. And so it really dictates to us what we can and cannot put in our drinks and our food. And so it is kind of almost some of the most, like things like orgeat, you can't get it here. You know, you have to make it and then you have to wait for almonds to be in. So you have to skip certain drinks, you know.
Yeah.
And people wonder why they can't get a particular Mai Tai. It's because we don't have the ingredients here. And it's too labor intensive to make it. But so I try to do these, it's a 15-minute show where we just show people the things that we have and the drinks that we make here. And very simple. Our drinks are very simple, but they are, you know, they're what we have and they are Caribbean.
It's quite interesting. You mentioned there about that rum punch, because each island will have numerous versions of a rum punch. Right? So the Asian rum punch will be different from a Jamaican one, but at the same time, you won't have one rum punch in Jamaica. I'm sure you don't have one rum punch in Barbados. So I think your point, Manny, that there is no consistency in terms of a recipe.
I agree and I disagree in that if you follow that rum punch poem,
and that's what we do on the show.
2 parts strong, 4 parts weak. When I first was going to make a rum punch, I talked to my mom and I even talked to Bruce. That's the recipe that Bruce was following, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question you have there is what is the sour you're using?
What is the rum you're using?
What's the rum you're using? And what's the weak you're using? Right?
And that's what we do.
And the sweet.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Yeah. What are the four? But to Manny's point of being able to pick a note and know what flavor you're going to showcase in the punch and what spice you're going to add. Again, and I don't know if we've never spoken, but Manny, I would say that in my experience of being in the field I don't have the luxury of customers who are, coming to a nice bar like a Lucky Cane because, they come into Lucky Cane because they come into a slightly fancy cocktail bar.
It's also that their mind is open to be influenced as well.
Right.
Which
we are doing cocktails at large scale sporting events. Cricket, primarily horse racing. Yeah. So you're dealing with the real average Joe palate punter here. They'll see a cocktail bar, and initially they were a bit skeptical, and now we are regular fixture. We have a bit of music. We're creating a bit of the kind of atmospheric drink. When you come, is Caribbean vibes. You come to the bar, but being able to create a drink that is consistent. We have a recipe that I can create a rum punch that is a single drink. Or it is a batch that you serve in 100, 200, 400, 1,000 serves. That is the same taste every time. And being able to do that, I think, is what has made, from my experience, make that rum punch very successful in that it works. It takes work to make it. In that, way I make the syrup, I make the syrup a particular way. We use fresh lemon juice. We squeeze fresh orange in the top to kind of add a bit of fresh citrus on the top of it. But having that exactly as you described there, because for me, the rum punch was kind of a core cocktail for, if I was doing a Caribbean rum bar, the only drink that people think of when they think of rum and they think of holiday, because we sell in holiday as an experience.
It's a rum punch.
This place is a rum punch. So
no tourists go to the Caribbean and doesn't want a rum punch as their first drink.
Right.
That's true.
So for me, the fact that they come in and they're like, oh yeah, I just come back from Barbados. Oh, I love going to Jamaica. I go to Antigua. I've been to St. Lucia. I've been to Tobago. I've been to Trinidad. When they they come for rum punch. Now, I've had people come up and ask me, why is your rum punch not red? And I say to them, it's because I don't put any syrup in it. And I even had people question my rum punch initially by the fact that, well, this is not red because it's not red. However, when to them tasting the drink, they come back and like, this actually is quite a tasty drink. What do you put in it? I say, well, actually, that's my business. But thank you for your money. Thank you for your money. You're welcome.
You should make a book.
Pardon?
But I can vouch that the man's rum punch is the bomb, because I've worked with Mark on occasion. I saw the line was just, it was ridiculous.
Wonderful.
The line that the people, they actually stand in the line and they wait. They are waiting to get the rumbling drinks.
Yeah, man.
Lovely.
And yeah, for that rum punch. And they were not going nowhere. So I can say the man's rum punch.
Right. Can I ask a question?
For days.
Can I
Alright? I've seen it.
Let me ask a question. Do locals drink rum punch?
Christmas time.
No.
Christmas time in Trinidad.
Okay.
It's still a tourist drink.
What's the cream they drink?
Rum cream.
Rum punch and punch a cream are the things you have.
And they drink like sorrel and ginger beer and they put rum in it.
Yeah.
Christmas time.
But rum punch
but
for us was a Christmas drink. You wouldn't have a rum punch. And the rum punch, obviously, because it
but hold on, you're talking about the punch creme or rum punch? Which one are you talking about?
Rum punch. Punch a creme is for Christmas only. I would find rum punch would be, if the rum punch was there during the year, somebody would come by and it might still be there, some left. But it was only ever made in my house at Christmas time. And it was only ever primarily consumed in Almas and that period because people come in. And my mom makes a good rum punch, so people would come and they know she have a good rum punch, so they will drink that. But
I don't go to parties in Jamaica and hear anybody locals.
No. Well, in my generation and other now, no, you wouldn't go to a fete. If you go to a fete and they have a rum punch in all inclusive, it'll be one of those big juice punches with some punching in it.
You might take it as a welcome drink.
Yeah, you put something together and you make this drink, and then that's just what it is. And that's why I was saying there's no respect given to the reality that drink, that rum punch, is a way to really showcase your not your home per se. If you take it beyond that, if you take it kind of from a more societal perspective. Each island, when you're making that punch, that's your place. That's you in that. Yeah. Nobody treats that drink with that kind of respect because, as you said, Manny, punch used to be a drink for the wealthy.
But it's also the thing is people aren't judging you either that much on the punch because your demographic are the people that are consuming punch in the Caribbean are not necessarily that discerning. They're trying to get drunk. You know, so
true. It's holiday drinkers. They just want all they remembering is they had a woman come and she actually, and most people will come and have my rum punch and say, actually, this is better than I had in the Caribbean. And I'm like, well, I would hope so because I put a lot of time into the recipe. Not you.
No, I'm joking.
Not you. The average holiday punch.
I'm joking.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The average resort rum punch. But what I also said to her was,
do you think the reason why the rum punch is not being respected is because we as in but some of the Caribbean mentality is like, rum is associated as for a poor man's drink, or rum is not really the high class kind of drink whereby you will drink a champagne or you'll drink a whiskey, something that's it's a prestige kind of thing, and the rum is more like for the low class or the working class. Do you think that's why the appreciation of rum and rum punch and that staple is not there?
The working class wouldn't drink a rum punch. In my opinion, I mean, the working class is going to have a rum and coke or a rum and ting or something, but they're not going to have a rum punch. I just think that our consumption of rum is about what's easy.
You know what I would say? I would say this. But in the Caribbean, people just fling the Caribbean in one bucket and say the Caribbean. The Caribbean is many levels. You have it's a tourist dependent place. So a bit like how the Madras curry came about. This is not something that Indians eat, The point I'm trying to make is it's an appropriated culture a lot of the time. And a lot of the time, Caribbean people are actually excluded from it. And so it's not actually their culture. They're just kind of like, And I'm sure this is what this show is about. It's like, it's an appropriated culture that because we make the stuff fair and somebody says, oh, we should make this into a punch bowl, then we do it, and we do it on demand. But are we really passionate about it? No, because it's not our culture. Can we really get grenadine syrup back? No, because it's not our culture. You know, and you know, the Michael, all these other drinks that are tropical and so on, are they really from here? No. So I think the day that Caribbean people will start glorifying these drinks, then they are the creators. When the stories, you know, are about the place, are about the people, are about the bowlie, the calabash that's used, about, and that's why Rivers really takes off, because Rivers it's no word of a lie. Like, it is the drink that local people drink. It's not a pretend, you know. In every bar you go to, they'll have a Rivers, they'll have an under the counter, they'll have a Clark store. And then they'll have infused ones, and we have lots of those, and they are like, you know, these infused things. We don't have the tea punch culture, and I think that's just the French islands and the way that they've dealt with, I don't know, maybe they had a scurvy problem or something, I don't know. No, but you'd be amazed how these things all start. But
no, but the thing is that it's okay, Jeff. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go on.
But here we put spice in ours because we have an abundance of spice, and that's where the under the counter is. But local people really drink under the counter, and they will, you know, you'll go and visit them, and you'll ask them for a drink, and they'll ask you what you want. You want a beer? You want a rum? What kind of rum you want? I have a nice spice rum there. This is the way that we drink. We are discerning in that we like to taste the alcohol. We don't want it covered up with lots of different syrups and this kind of thing.
Can I also ask a question, therefore, is that what I find in the Caribbean is that we have a sweet tooth.
We what?
We have a sweet tooth. I mean, we like sweet. Is that a fact? Do we like our drink sweet?
No, because if I go into a bar in Guelph and I say to them, give me a rum and coke, they're filling half my glass with rum and they put in the tiniest splash of coke.
Yeah, but it's rum and coke. It's not coke and rum, you know.
But that's not how I want to drink. I want a rum and coke. Give me a shot of rum. They're saying, well, you want a coke with rum in it?
Yeah,
exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's a coke with rum. It's not a rum and coke. That is a completely different drink. But no, you were saying there, Lizette, quite interestingly about, you think the Caribbean people will probably, you know, it has to be kind of them telling their story as part of the process. I think that I've been telling lots of people this for a long time, that we have a lot of flavor stories to tell, but we probably don't tell those stories, and which is why much of what you find is being consumed are stories that we are fed by marketing. So if Campari have money to spend in the Caribbean and they're advertising, if Johnny Walker have money to spend, whoever, those people, those at Pavoisier, Ciroc, whoever, those are the things you see on street. All the flavor things that you see are things that they're selling. I mean, we have, look, Morby. Right? I make a liqueur with that to replace Campari in cocktails that we sell. Right? I'm not even a big Morby fan.
I don't like Morby.
It was just part of my trying to tell the story of, well, we have bitter in our liquid palette as well. Could I potentially make a drink where I would use this in it? So I say, no, I will make a Morby liqueur and I'll make a Negroni. Just take the Campari out. And I went to a bar that the people didn't know me. Ask the bartender to make a Negroni. I tell him, use my liqueur instead of Campari next one. I put the two drinks next to each other. And people pick the one with Morby in it every time. Right?
Because you see, the thing is that, first of all, the flavors are real. I actually think, and maybe Manny, you will say if it. Kelvin, would you mind muting your actual microphone? Yeah. Thank you. Did he get that? No.
No, he didn't get that.
No, I didn't hear that. What was that?
No, I was
Ask
asking.
Kelvin to mute his microphone because the crackling is really unbearable.
Oh, is that Kelvin again?
It's not his fault. He doesn't know.
Mute. If you mute your thing when you, yeah, I think it's better now.
It's much better. Yeah. So I was saying that.
Yeah.
And Manny will probably agree with
yeah.
it.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
Whatever way you see it, Manny, but you know when something comes from the same region, I don't know what that's called, if it's symbiosis or whatever. In that, when things like
things that grow together go together.
Yes, and right, you said it perfectly, and I've learned that more and more. And also, rum tastes so amazing in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
When I'm drinking it here and when I'm drinking it in the UK, it's like two completely different drinks.
The same drink, but different feeling.
But no, I think also...
No, it's like the air opens it differently.
Yeah, I think that's right.
The humidity does something different to it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think what you said was very important, that people aren't going to adopt those types of drinking cultures unless they feel like they have some ownership over it. And maybe it's about education in the Caribbean in terms of the people who are involved in the drinks industry, and inspiring them to produce those things for themselves. Getting young bartenders, training them, allowing them to be introduced so they can change and create their own ideas from what they have as a local source. Because if you look at popular or successful drinking cultures, they're based really on their surroundings and the products that they have around them. So I think that's important, finding what are the local products that are going to succeed in the modern drinks industry in the Caribbean.
And we will absolutely perfect example of that. It doesn't matter what drink is famous or not. Everybody in the Caribbean drinks bitters. It is part of our culture.
How do they drink bitters?
So it depends. If you have a stomachache, you're drinking it in there with water.
Yeah.
Bitters. I have to say that every cocktail that we make at Rum Boat Retreat has bitters in it. And even if it's just at the end, it really balances the flavors of so many cocktails. Especially if you've got really fresh ones, you add a bit of bitters and it just suckles everything down.
Bitters is a great product. And
it's quite interesting. Can I make a comment when we talked
Where's
about...
Kelvin gone? He just left us with the noise.
Yeah, and every time he puts his earphone down, the crackling starts. Put your earphones in your head. Yeah. So,
mute.
Yeah. So, Kelvin.
I'm gonna put it. I can't hear much.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting that you mentioned ownership and whether you got to remember as well. Bartending in the Caribbean is seen as a low-grade job. There is no skill required to be a bartender in the Caribbean. Anybody can mix a drink in the Caribbean. Any boy can make a drink in the Caribbean. So there's not really an element of sophisticated or any kind of training unless you obviously move to one of the high-end hotels where you might get some level of training. And I'm not even sure how much level of training you get even at that level. Culture would have to change. We would have to, and it is changing, because I know in Antigua, Lisa does a bartending school in Antigua.
Lovely.
There's one in Barbados as well, I think.
So she's been doing her bartending school. So that needs to happen. We need to start training bartenders and getting them to understand that, there's Mark and I were talking last week, and we were just saying that if back when we were youngsters, if we told our parents that we wanted to be a bartender, they would absolutely laugh at you. They would say, "Are you mad?"
Yeah.
Right? What, you need to go and get yourself a proper job, right? Because it would not have been seen as a career option. Whereas,
isn't that the same everywhere in the world, though?
I think it's only emerged, I would say in the last 10 or 15 years has it become a real career option.
Yeah.
Because the the market has expanded. There's a lot more bars that are successful. There's many more bars, and the skill level, like the requirements that you have now to be a bartender, you have to have such a wide knowledge base that it can be seen as a profession, and you can be paid well to do it. So maybe that will transfer to the Caribbean over time. That they'll consider it as more of a
I guess
valid profession.
the hotels and stuff probably need to connect to that as well, right? Because as you were saying, nobody goes to the Caribbean. People go to the Caribbean for the environment. Some may go for the rum, and obviously we have a lot of very, very tasty food, as Lizette was saying. They're very particular in every island. Everybody know in this area who to go by for, if it's stew chicken, if it's goat, if it's jerk, if it's roti, if it's doubles, whatever it is, fried fish and oysters, whatever. But there isn't the same for drinks, because we don't have an associated taste culture of creating a good. There's no rum shop in any way I've ever heard of in the Caribbean. Maybe Lizette, you would be able to correct me, but I don't have a rum shop where somebody would go and say, "Oh well, if you want a good rum punch, go there."
Yeah. But you see, again, it's just about inclusion and exclusion. The Caribbean people are excluded from their own product, in that, as I was saying before, it really is very simple. The reason that bartenders here will get better, and the only way they will get better, is if, a bit like you, Mark, you are able to use products that like the Marby bark and cinnamon and other things that you grew up with, and you can create your own take on other drinks and make them our own. And people, and it fits the palate of the Caribbean people. The reason that the food takes off is because we have our cultural food. But guess what? In most of the hotels, they don't serve that food because the foreigners don't want that food. Everything is an appropriation. If you go to people want the Caribbean experience, but their own tailor-made version of it.
Right.
I will say that exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that, because if you come to England, you might want to have an Italian, or you might want to have but the point I'm trying to say is that there should be a baseline of, this is what it is to be Caribbean, and then everything else is additional.
We're almost. You talk about the hotels don't serve Caribbean food, and we complain in Jamaica. It's almost as if they're ashamed of Jamaican food.
Yeah.
Right? And there's almost a culture where they're ashamed of rum, right? And that it's just, as we've said all along, it's this working class drink that people just drink to get drunk on, and therefore it's not seen as something of quality, and therefore that leads to change. And to be honest, I would probably argue how many of the aged Appletons are consumed in Jamaica? I bet you it's a tiny percentage, right?
Well, they don't distribute it enough.
They're exported. Yeah.
When I was distributing plantation rum, for example, in the Caribbean, that was a hard task, even to get anyone to believe in me that I would be able to get plantation rum to sell here, and it's so well. But in the very beginning, there was doubt. Why would you want to sell it in the Caribbean? The Caribbean hasn't even got a market. There's all that almost it's looked at as an inferior place. And my argument was, there are 300 million people in the Caribbean, and each of them have identical cultures called different things. But we all sing from the same hymn book, and we all have the same climate, and we kind of all, so if everybody's drinking El Dorado, why on earth wouldn't they drink anything else if they know about it? And if
what's quite fascinating is, and from my experience, and I know in Jamaica, and you guys can talk to me about the other islands, but El Dorado was the only brand that successfully was able to get their products respected in other Caribbean countries. And El Dorado sells well in Jamaica. You go to Antigua, you see El Dorado. And so, therefore, you know, whatever you think of El Dorado, people view El Dorado as a premium rum, right? And therefore, there is that gives you an idea that there is potential. Therefore, that if you can get the product to the consumer and get them to try it, right, then there is potential for that product. The good rum and better rums.
Yeah. Most of our good rum is exported. It's not given as an option even to the local market.
I think in Trinidad, the range that Angostura sells, the 3, 5, and 7, the butterfly range, which is, I think, was the genesis of that range. That exists now. They didn't sell that in Trinidad. You would only get 1918 and 1824, and I suppose now this one, the 1787.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't get the 3, 5, or 7 in Trinidad. You'd only get all of the lower end stuff. So, you know, Puncheon, Fernandez, Black Label, and
is what happened to VAT 19?
VAT as well. VAT was very, 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 very popular. White Oak or Royal Oak was also
Royal Oak,
was very popular. We don't export that. I brought some of that back some years ago for some friends, and they quite liked it. But
you know what I wish, like all of us and other people in the industry, when they come here, that they share their skills. You know, it's you're responsible. It's your heritage, and if you want to see a more diverse array of drinks in Trinidad or in Barbados or wherever in Jamaica, get involved. Get involved in teaching. You'd be amazed how much people here know and just don't say it because they look at it in the same way that the hotel look at it. We don't want to know about your curry chicken. We want it with cream in it. And we go, well, we don't have dairy cream. And they go, well, that's what you put in it because that's what we like. And that's the point. Like, there are things that you learn, and there's almost probably some herbs and spices or fruits that you don't even know. And then you'll try them and you'll go, wow, that reminds me of a such and such. I mean, great in this cocktail.
Yeah, Manny, can I ask you, if you had the potential to work with all of those Caribbean fruit and spices, I mean, wouldn't that be
amazing? I mean, I've actually always had the idea that I would try and open a bar in the Caribbean and have bartenders come down and train bartenders in the Caribbean, and then do a reverse. So you send a bartender from the Caribbean to whichever bar has been, so that they get a guest shift. You send the bartender out, they learn, and then create that kind of conversation as well, and kind of mental engagement. But it's also up to the brands, because I feel like the brands kind of have a responsibility to kind of reignite that kind of atmosphere within the Caribbean itself, because they do so much in the UK. There's so many competitions, there's so many events. They launch a new product, it's a massive thing, and maybe they need to invest some of that back into the
local market.
Exactly, yeah. Because they have massive budgets. It's not going to cost them anything.
Yeah, man, bring people down every year.
Well, we should do it. I'm here. You're there. We can do it. You know,
let's do it.
We had a guy called John Leese come here. He did a great job as well, trying to bring some of the tiki concepts, which is tropical drinks, and it works very well here because we have a lot of the products. And he was able to almost show a different side of it. He was here for, I think, about 3 months or so, and he did some bits and pieces here. But it was just so sad to see him go so quickly because he was so skilled at what he does.
Yeah.
And we just don't have anything like it. So by the time that everybody got the opportunity to get into the culture that he was bringing, it was too late. He was ready to go.
Yeah.
So if it's something we could rotate, it would be fantastic, because I think that we have things like soursop, for example.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a sour banana and pineapple kind of.
And there's nothing like it. Yeah.
But I went to Madrid and saw a guy making this cocktail. The most amazing soursop cocktail I've ever had in my life, and I thought, why the hell am I having this in Madrid?
I made a soursop guava cocktail a while ago as a kind of take on a pina colada, again twisting around the bits, and it was yeah, it was banging with some Clemmer.
Yeah.
So it was more. I felt it was more. It worked really well with that kind of cachaça or agriculture, but it was great. But it's things like that where you'd never really try, or people aren't trying things like that at home, and that's where I think
as well a lot of that creativity is also that a lot of that creativity is nullified by their employers, right?
Yeah, that's a good
who will not allow them that level of creativity, who therefore say, listen, you come here to make drinks, right? Don't waste your time making some foolish concoction, right? And that's basically the attitude, that you come here to serve rum and cokes and serve whatever, right? So
but do you think that is you think that's a real heavy direction where young people will go into a bar situation, say in a hotel, and the hotel itself might not have the direction, and they say, oh, I've been looking online and seeing this fancy hotel bartender doing this. We have rum, or we have this. How about I try making this? Do you really think that a hotel would tell a bartender, actually, you know what? Forget that. Rum and coke.
They will, really? Because it's down to the bottom line.
Wow.
It's the bottom line at the ending of the day. We can bring in preserved cartons of juice and these things, and we keep our costs fixed, and we keep our profits where we want them to be. And actually people, and then also if you bartenders are something that in Grenada, not in the other islands, but in this island, you don't have many skilled ones. So if you have one person who comes in and brings too much of their personality and they leave, you're left with people not coming to your place anymore. There's an insecurity where that's concerned as well, which
I think you've got to remember as well, the other thing in the Caribbean, where that versatility is not really encouraged, is most of these hotels and these bars and so on, right? They are sponsored by a rum brand and a soft drink company, right? And those are the products they want you to use. They're not sponsored by somebody with sweet and sour sap. They're not sponsored by somebody with ugly fruit. They're not sponsored by somebody who's got cinnamon and nutmeg, right? So these items are now a cost to the establishment.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas the fresh, the juices and the fizzy drinks and the rum even though they are a cost, they're sponsored for those items. So the cost is significantly less. And as Lizette said, a lot of the time it's about the bottom line. So I think that is most definitely the case. But I think that what it needs is it was quite interesting when I read I don't know how many people read Potions of the Caribbean, which is Beach Bum Berry's book.
Yeah.
But in the last chapter, he says it's a crying shame.
No, I haven't read that one yet.
He said it's a crying shame that the Caribbean has no cocktail culture left. When you consider the history in the Caribbean, when you go back to the days of Cuba, the hotels in Jamaica, right? Queen's Park Hotel in Trinidad, and all of these places that had cocktail cultures, well-known bartenders who created it. And that's just disappeared from the Caribbean. And maybe, I mean, Barbados, I suppose Barbados, we've got Papa Jules, haven't we? Who's at the cliff.
There's a cliff, yeah.
So,
I mean, I remember Bruce was telling me a while ago that he went home and he was there for a couple of months doing something. I can't remember what it was. And he was saying that, like, the availability of good citrus, like consistently getting good citrus was a challenge. They use a lot of sour mix. So again, as we talked about, they kind of manage cost control. So they're doing, you have ingredients that you'd think you'd want to go and use seasonal fresh stuff and then find a way to maybe capture and preserve. So if you know you're going to have a shortage at some point later on the road, if you have a lot of limes, buy, freeze, and utilize through. You'd have to develop a program to do that, right? But nobody's thinking about it from that perspective. Just as you described, was that it's pretty much all about we have to remain profitable, and the only thing we're concerned about here is profitability. The product here is the place and the surrounding. Yeah. What they eat and they drink when they get here isn't. We don't really have to make too much of a fuss about that. Let's make sure it's tasty and they don't get sick, basically. And I'm sure that the food is. I mean, the food's quite nice, and maybe the drinks are similar. But I was so surprised when Bruce came back into it. He was like, "You see, you can't get good stuff. Like it's just not consistent." And then also, just as you were describing, there's no desire to say, well, if you have sour orange, use that. We have varieties of citrus that are available at points, but nobody really taking that step to think out of the box and go to that place where.
Which is what I
a lot of that is lack of training, isn't it? Because nobody's really taught you, right, of what to look for in those citrus flavors or what you're looking for in those fruity notes and so on. So it's unless you take it on board yourself and you've got a particular gift or a particular palate that you think you can create stuff, right? That training is not there, and quite often, as I said, I think a lot of that is what Lizette says is that in some ways that training has to come from overseas. We need that has to be brought back to the Caribbean by Caribbean people, and has to be brought to the Caribbean by Caribbean people. Not just but people. Not just Caribbean people. People who understand how the making of drinks is. I mean, you like you said with food. When you eat a curry goat that is just made perfectly, you're in heaven. Right? When you have a cocktail that has been made perfectly, you're also in heaven. Yeah. Right?
I have to say that living here, I mean, apart from me having cocktails in the house here, in the guest house here, there are very few places on this island that I would jump at and get excited about having a cocktail. Really. And the hotels, they might put it in a really nice glass and put some extra nice garnishes on it. But the taste is like that 1970s, 1980s, Miami style, super sweet, and they get really excited about it. And you're just like, look, I haven't got a choice, Loads of blended drinks. This blended ice thing, I don't understand it, but there's loads of that too. Yeah. If I say to someone, I want a daiquiri, but I want it shaken, they look at me like,
well, that's not a Caribbean thing. That's probably a US thing. A daiquiri.
That is an American thing, yeah.
I completely understand that. But even still, I think if you are a bartender and I'm going to a bar and I'm saying, look, this is a drink I'd like, you'd think that the bartender's knowledge would be vast enough that he can say, okay, I understand, no problem. It's like
no, a lot of them don't know. I've had a friend who's in the States. She was telling me she went somewhere and they couldn't. She asked for a daiquiri, and the guy stood there very politely and said, "Sorry, our blender's broke and we can't make you a daiquiri." And she's sitting in a bar and she's looking at the guy like, "But
you don't need a blender."
Oh, I don't bother.
And then when she said that,
I go to a rum shop.
He then became very, very concerned. Like, what do you mean you don't need a blender to make a daiquiri?
Yeah.
Questioning me as a bartender. I'm telling you, I need a blender to make a daiquiri. And she's saying, "Well, no, not the one I want. Like, I just want you to put 3 ingredients in a shake and shake it and give it to me." And
well, I can go as far as saying I had a debate, an argument with a lady from the US who proceeded to tell me that the frozen daiquiri predates.
So for me, Caribbean is all about the rum shops. Right about now, the under the counter.
Well, let's ask Kelvin a question, right? Because I want to ask Kelvin a question because we talked about the Caribbean, and I want to quickly mention the French Caribbean. quickly, because they have probably the least diverse.
I'm finding hard to hear you guys, but you're gone.
The French Caribbean has the least diverse way of consuming rum. The tea punch is fundamentally it.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's having a rough time today.
He's having a rough time. But you know what I mean? The tea punch you're the Martinique or Guadeloupe.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way they consume rum is in a tea punch.
I know.
And it's so here we talk about, you know, Jamaica will have a rum and coke or Ray and Ting or you know, we've got there's territories where it's even more narrow in terms of the selection as to what you can get. And I mean, rum and soul. I used to love rum and soul at Christmas.
Oh, nice.
Soul is such a good mixer, especially.
I
argue with Mark all the
Wonderful.
time. Mark says that your Jamaican soul is not the proper soul, and we always argue because we use ginger and cloves in our soul, whereas they don't in Trinidad.
Yes, ginger is not the clove. We use clove. We just
use cloves. It's not the ginger. Yeah, and we always argue, but I love that spiciness. And then you put overproof rum with that. Oh Lord!
Well, it's the same thing. It's the same for us. You put a nice rum with sorrel, and it works. I mean, to be fair though, when I make my sorrel syrup and the liqueur I make as well, which I can't see the barrel, but I age it in a little oak barrel I have in my kitchen there now.
It's a sorrel liqueur that you age, you say? Yeah,
I put it in a barrel.
Okay.
So when I make the liqueur, I make it with I tend to put agricole. The agricole kind of just brightens it, just a little touch at the end. So I put some in to kind of just bring it to life a bit. But when you make the liqueur, I extend the amount of agricole I put in. But I find when you put it in the barrel, the oak barrel, for no longer than 3 weeks, you get some of the woody flavor coming in, but it kind of just rounds it in a way that makes the sorrel, the liqueur just taste like I'd never had it. I just decided one day I was gonna try it. Yeah. My mom makes
it's good, obviously, because you can't describe it. It's like
I've got a question here quickly just to read out to you guys. Andrew asked, there was a discussion among the panel on how bartending needs to be advanced in the Caribbean. And Roger mentioned that years ago, family may not have supported someone saying they wanted to be a bartender and would say, go get a real job. I can see why this would be a deterrent to someone starting in the industry. So just wondering if the panel feels this kind of family pressure could be holding back the progression of bartending in the Caribbean.
I mean, I would say even in my own journey of looking at it, I would say before I got into doing this, so that would have been about 8 years ago, before Rumbling started as an event, I would have probably said to any of my younger cousins or anybody asking me, I mean, I don't really know much about it. If you want to try it out and see, but you know, I don't know if there's really a path for you to go. And that's just I didn't know. Now that I do understand that there's a path to go, I probably would say yes. So I guess, yes, I would say that the family pressure still probably does exist because people don't know. And worse in the Caribbean, as Manny and as we've all said, there isn't really a place for people to go with it. You go work in a hotel bar, but what do you do beyond that? You work in a bar in a hotel, or you work in a bar somewhere, and then you become... You get in the hotel administration, or nobody sees it like how, for instance, people like Audrey, who would have worked at Trailer and worked at these different bars, and she's now the global brand ambassador for Havana Club, which, you know, I look at so many others I've seen. Alex,
it's quite interesting you mentioned that, but I'm just thinking of the mentality of young people, millennials in particular.
But also, the thing is, are the jobs there?
Yeah, the jobs are there, but millennials, the millennials' focus is not so much on how much is earning money, it's about enjoying the job, enjoying what they do. So I wonder if that mentality could change in the Caribbean if they felt as if they were allowed a sense of creativity within the industry, because there are still a number of barriers.
But that's the first part. There has to be a place for it to go, right? It's like, if you look at cricket, in the days when a young cricketer before my time could have played cricket, gotten really good, gotten to play county cricket somewhere in the UK or some other place, and there was a path loads of cricketers could go. There was a place for them, they could see a life in it. That life has to be created, where people have to see that this is a whole thing.
It's their culture. It's their story. I mean, when I came here over 15 years ago now, and moved here, there were things. My grandmother's generation was so much more proud of being Caribbean, in that they carried their Caribbeanness all the way to the UK, created Caribbean areas, did things in a Caribbean way, which I thought was just life. I thought that's just the way you did things, you know. And then I went to school and I was like, okay, that's not the way you do things. Okay. Oh, the way that I'm doing things is Caribbean. Okay, fair enough. And then, you know, just things like the way that, I don't know, we have lunch here. It's just so unique, and the way that we drink rum, everything is so unique that if you don't allow yourself, when visiting this place, or any Caribbean island, to matter of fact, if you don't allow yourself to become immersed in what it truly means to live on a tropical island, to exist here, it's really different from living in the towns and going to markets and acting westernized. Living and existing here is really a survival. It's really, everything is seasonal. You can't chuck things away. There's no IKEA down the road. You know, people, Rastamen live a certain way. It's all about sustainability, and sustainability, not even in just a sense of like just saying the word, like, oh, be sustainable, hippies. People actually live like that on a normal day-to-day basis.
Catching water, rainwater, catching that kind of thing.
And then, like, people say, oh, drink rum, Caribbean. Lots of people, as I said, don't drink rum here. There's a lot of spirituality. We're also still involved in their spirituality.
We've also got to understand as well is that people got to understand the Caribbean. Now, the majority of poor people in the Caribbean are poor, proper poor, right?
But they're really proud.
Yeah, very proud people, but they are poor, right? And therefore, they will not have the money to go on. Whether you had a cocktail or not, they wouldn't be able to spend that money on a cocktail. They'll be able to have a rum, and they're satisfied with that, right? Now, let's look at how much has the middle class grown in the Caribbean over the years, and has it grown across all the islands? I know Jamaica has a very strong middle class now, because that's your target audience, people who have disposable income, who can now go to these bars and say, I would like a daiquiri. I'm going to try one of these punches or something like that. And how much, because, you know, you got to remember, you know, the Caribbean was always a two-class society. It was the haves and the have-nots, right? There was never a middle class. It was those with money and those who didn't have any money.
Can I just say something, Roger? Because I agree with what you're saying if you look at it on the surface. But if you are making drinks that is produced from goods that we already have here, the drink should be low cost. The reason that cocktails are really expensive here is because we're buying in products that we don't make.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, exactly. If for instance somebody were to make a Negroni with Morbi is a cheap thing. You could go in the market.
Everyone's drinking Morbi. Every man and his dog is drinking it.
Sorrel, you could have sorrel all year. Sorrel, when you have sorrel for Christmas, you dry it, and then you could have sorrel for the whole year. Those are things that's not it's sustainability, yes, but it's also looking at what you have. Again, we have so much more citrus varietals, so much hybrid citrus, all kind of, you know, things that grow in it. It have limes now, it might have, you know, oranges, this kind of. Use all of it, but
not only that, all year round lemongrass grows. I've got it all over my garden because poor people put it in their gardens to get rid of sandflies. They also use it if they have fever. They drink that. They drink bitters. They drink every papaya. I've got so much papaya till it's spoiling.
Yeah.
Mangoes.
I would kill for some of that now because I can't get papaya from my guy here because it's too expensive and nobody in Peckham want to buy papaya. So
You have to buy it by the case.
I'm trying to say that we have these things here, but they spoil. Not only do they spoil, but when we do make a nice cocktail with them, we want to charge petty bouge money, and it shouldn't be because the thing is spoiling already. So, and we're putting half the rum in it because if you go to a shop and they give you an eighth of rum, this costs nothing. You could make 5 cocktails with that. You could make a drink that's affordable for everybody if you really want to. The point is that we're living to a model of what we say is Americanized or
foreign is best. Foreign is best.
Foreign is best, and it shouldn't be because we have it here. We have it in abundance. I have at the moment all these fresh pineapples. I don't even know what to do with them because we're closed. Rum Retreat is closed right now, and I've got so much pineapples, and I'm like, we'll dehydrate some. But you know, because things usually move with the season, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot we usually have guests, and those pineapples aren't enough, so we planted more, and now we got too much. No people. So it is just about trying to. Here, I think the knowledge is what we're missing. The ability to write the things down and keep it here. It's written down, but it's in books for you all over there. And you have the education. We have the produce. And if you guys, whenever you do visit, you can share some of the tricks that you know and develop the space, then in 5 years' time, we'll be having a different conversation. We'll be talking about what's the best bar rather than, you know, where can you find one?
Well, I mean, it would be nice if the stuff you talked about, money, like being able to kind of do an exchange. I'd love to, because of the stuff that we're doing, I'd love to see if we could do something like that with hospitality students who are interested in, because of the way that my business works, it's all temporary events.
Yeah.
You turn up at a site. Sometimes you have to build the bar from scratch. Well, I say from scratch in that we have equipment, so a shack.
I love your little shack. It's amazing.
It is cool. It's cool. So we build a shack, or we pull up with a trailer, and but you have to set up your bar space.
Yeah.
But that opportunity for I'd suppose for somebody who was, you know, young and interested in that industry in the Caribbean, if you could get here and they could work with us for a summer, get a chance to meet guys like you and Lucky Kane, and the boys at Trailer, guys like Declan at the Savoy, other places, get that kind of exposure and then go back. But you have to get support for that. And I know that, you know, the government would have to support it. They'd have to be interested, and even just floating the idea by
and the brands are very they're not forthcoming in order to try and bring over bartenders from Europe, because obviously they see it as a massive cost that they'd rather bring bartenders from the USA.
Well, you know what? It's getting better. I say, like, the Caribbean that I arrived to and the Caribbean that we have now, 2 totally different places. In 15 years, the development in terms of just culinary is massive. I mean, the brands, I mean, rum as a product was forgotten when I came. And I was trying to do research, and it was so hard to find information. With the growth of the internet, it's helped, and with the growth of the interest of rum, you have people traveling. I get so many guests coming to stay here that, you know, traveled to one island, saw things, and then became intrigued, found some information, and now want to know more about rum elsewhere. Oh, Darren says something. Why doesn't the Caribbean promote the rum in circuit industry like hip hop did? Oh, yeah, they do. They sing only about rum in circuit music. That's all they say. So, Darren,
they do it in a kind of just a wild out kind of way. They're using it as a mechanism to get drunk, and not as a they're not bigging it up in the way
they're
that
not flaunting.
right. They're not flaunting a bottle of Eldorado 21. They holding a bottle of punching. Whilst so you're catering to it's not the
thing is, Bacardi was a party rum, right? You've got to put things in their place. You know, a party rum is a party rum, and I quite agree. Like, to be honest, if I go to a party, do I really want to sip a rum? Probably not, man. I want some cheap something to go and wind down low with and just enjoy, free up myself. I'm sure it's the same even in Lucky Cane on your Friday night. It's completely different from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's the mood, and that's the thing. Rum for different moods, and rum was not explained like that. And at the Rumbo retreat, we really, when we're doing these master classes and when we're doing the simple cocktails, we really just showing people, look, I mean, this is just the tip of it. You know, you can learn about all the different expressions of rum. You can, whenever you visit the Caribbean, now ask. People felt stupid to ask simple questions like, what is rum? You know, why am I drinking this rum? Why am I putting limes with my rum? What is a rum punch? I mean, we get asked that question all the time, which is why I do the Instagram. Like, what is a rum? What is the difference between a cocktail and a rum punch? I get asked that constantly. Like, it's the number one question. And how many people in this region actually even know the science behind the drink that they consume, so that they dearly love so much, you know? It's just about opening those books, getting people to talk about it as a subject, and not shun away from it, and realize, as Richard Seal speaks a lot about it, in that, like, in the Caribbean, we look towards other drinks, but actually in some cases rum is more diverse and better.
In all cases.
In all cases.
There
is no comparison when it comes to diversity.
There is a rum for everybody. You cannot say there is a gin for everybody, or there is a whiskey for everybody. Nobody
dislikes rum. Not possible.
No, there are people that I have come across a few that
claim they dislike it.
But I think they dislike it.
They just didn't find the right one or the drink.
Well, and that's what I say to them. Or very similarly, they had a bad experience, as you would find, money, as you have customers come in and I don't drink rum. My friend dragged me here. I don't really drink rum. And you give them something nice to taste, and they're like, wow, I didn't know rum could taste like this.
Right, they see it as a peasantry drink. There's some guests that we have, and they're like, a G&T, please. And I say, okay, hold on. Let me make you.
The name of the place is.
Yeah, I know. Oh, but you'd be surprised how many people turn up here and be like, I just want a gin and tonic. I don't really want rum. I'm like, let me make you something that is exactly like it. And they're amazed. How comes this rum tastes like? Well, it doesn't taste exactly like a gin tonic, but I can drink this. And I'm like, there you go, you know.
It's because they've been drinking bad products, though. Because there's been a lot of bad rum in the UK.
Sorry?
We've had access to bad rum historically in the UK. Not bad rum, but rum that not particularly delicate in its flavor profile.
Manny, I like how you're staying.
I'm diplomatic.
PC as a bartender, not trying to say.
I know, you're diplomatic as a bartender. Isn't
I'm just thinking about the next time someone comes and they have to do an event and they're going to hear all the bad things I said about their rum.
No, you're making sense. That is that. But it's true though. It's true.
Yeah. But what we were saying before, I think the key is brand engagement from the local side, because that's what's going to make the big impact on how rum is consumed in the Caribbean, and that's what we need to make happen. You know, with the younger brands like Worthy Park, especially. Surely that if we can get them to engage, or various different brands like that, even Richard Seal, see if we can get them to engage and see how they can influence their own market. You know.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that most rum brands actually depend on their domestic market for their volume sales. I mean,
especially now.
I mean, Ray and Nephew sell 500,000 12-bottle cases in Jamaica alone.
Wow.
Right? So they don't sell that anywhere else in the world, I'm pretty sure. So you know, Antigua, English Harbor, and Cavalier, they depend on their domestic market, and you can go right across the board. And as you say, a lot of them depend because their export market is very challenging because it's very competitive, right? Because you're fighting against the major brands when you talk about the export market. So they should invest more in, as you said, in their local market and get and drive the rum culture in a different direction. You know.
Yeah, but Roger, as I was saying, we talked about this before, and coming to Lizette's point of economics, the reality of somebody or somebodies would have to make a conscious kind of socio-political choice to say, we want to create this culture, and as a result, we want our music artists to be promoting rum, but not low end. We want this. We want to have better. He's back again. We want to have better quality product in our hotel bars. We want to support that industry. That's a societal mind shift, and the companies locally right now, it's easy money.
Yeah.
Selling low cost,
it doesn't require investment, you're saying.
Why spend the money? Somebody had to, basically, it would literally have to be a diametric shift of mentality to say that there is in the next 50 years, we want to create an environment like this. For us to get to that place, we must do these things now. But the desire to create that space is probably not there and may never be there unless people who have lived outside and want to see that kind of shape to make it ubiquitous globally, where that culture of engagement with our product exists in that way, where you could go to Singapore and have a Monge or have an Angostura and come to Trinidad and have an Angostura in the Hyatt or in one of the hotels there and have a similar sipping experience where you get a fancy cocktail done a particular way and the bartender is super knowledgeable about it. But that comes from that's a diametric shift, and the brands will have to change the way they make their money locally. And who wants to do that? What's the rationale? Yeah. I see the value.
I mean, it's a long-term value.
But you got to ask the brand, why, if it ain't broke, why are they fixing it? Right? As far as they're concerned, they're making money. Right? Selling their local produce, and people are drinking it with ginger beer, Coke, ginger ale, whatever they drink it with locally. And why would I educate them to have it in another way? Right?
Yeah.
So the culture, I think, would have to change in the hotels.
But then also,
the culture is yours. The culture is ours. It is the people's. I understand the hotels are there, and they're never going to change their perspective. They always want the same shit. They want tourists, and you know what I mean? But it's our culture. It's our responsibility with all of our knowledge and experiences in life, from me being in the little Shabin kitchen to, you tasting rum with your uncle. All of that is cultural stories, and that's what makes things traditional after all. And I just think that we cannot be looking for people to tell us what I'm saying is that we have an idea. It's not to say that what you come with, Manny, may be accepted locally. People may go, what the hell is this guy doing? No, but the dialogue, the conversation that happens between you and the person, they may go, nah, mate, I'm not drinking that. But I tell you what I would do, I'll put that with that and I'm drinking that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you have something. And that can grow into being a culture, because all cultures start somewhere.
They need the
I agree with you, but it's the same way in the sense that you go to Sandals or you go to the various hotels and you educate them and train them on rum. So you're right, the culture does come from us.
Absolutely. They're coming here to experience what we do. They're coming here.
The easy targets are those groups which can change. The hotel groups can change and create. I mean, when the Cliff took Papa Jules', they obviously wanted to make sure they had top quality cocktails in the Cliff. And they were prepared to make that decision, and they have done. And he's been there, God, he's been there over 10 years, hasn't he? If I'm not mistaken. It could be close to 15 years.
Yeah, there's some guys I worked with in the Bahamas, a guy called Kyle, who is a brilliant bartender. He owns this cocktail bar called Bon Vivants. It's in Bahamas. And again, it's just craft cocktail culture. And what's nice is it's all local Bohemian guys working, and they're all included. But what is craft cocktail culture? It's just from your craft, it's from your environment, and there's no right or wrong to it. The minute that we start thinking, oh, it's not like this, it's not like that, as long as there is a basic, you obviously do want your balance. But yeah, exactly. But once you've got that, and then that's your part, Manny. You can say, okay, you must have balance, right? But what would you put in this? I'm sure people aren't stupid. They come up with something once they understand. Oh, I've got to stay within these parameters.
Yeah.
And the sort of thing that people will come up with.
The other thing, when we talk about cocktails and cocktail culture, right? One of the things that we try and encourage people when we're selling products as well is that you don't have to make a complicated drink for it to be a cocktail. You can make a very simple drink.
Yeah.
Right? Right? To make that rum taste nice. It does not have to have some weird and fancy concoctions of syrups and shrubs and all these various things that people make at home in their kitchen. Right? You can take some basic, simple things. Didn't you make something? Didn't you, Manny? You made something of Ray and Ting, didn't you?
Yeah, I recreated Ray and Ting, but it was a sherbet. So I grated the skin off of a grapefruit and a lime and an orange, and I macerated it all in sugar. I made a really strong syrup and added sugarcane juice to it, and then blended it. It was amazing.
So it's basically an oleo.
Yeah, it's like a turbo alio sacro, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, accidental drink I did was, we have a drink called Rum Love and Ting, which is basically agricole, sorrel syrup, and ting with a squeeze of lime. Wow. And the drink was an accident because I had never made sorrel syrup, and I wanted to try that as a syrup instead of plain sugar syrup. I had a deal with Clemmer. We had Clemmer cheap, and I work with Ting. I've been working with Ting for the last 6 years doing brand activations for them. So I always have Ting available, and the drink was just the three things in the kitchen. Let me just put them in a glass, and
it sounds great.
The drink was great.
One of the cocktails I did was a rum infusion. So I had pineapple and cinnamon. And I just did the pineapple cinnamon rum. So you infuse it with those two. You put egg whites. You put a little bit of sugar syrup. You shake it up, and then when you garnish it, grate some nutmeg and a triangle pineapple, and that was it. So it's not a confusing kind of loads of kind of ingredients. It's just a simple thing. And if you are vegan or not really into egg whites, you could just do the chickpeas water, which is another alternative of giving that froth at the top.
Yeah.
So from what Roger is saying in terms of a cocktail, it's not really. It doesn't have to be a complicated loads of ingredients. The simpler, the better. But as long as it's tasty, as long as the taste is on point, that is what matters for a cocktail. That's my opinion. When I'm
at home and I'm experimenting making various drinks, the thing I learned very quickly was when I make it too complicated, then all of a sudden the flavors are getting out of hand, and then you've lost control of the drink. So I've learned quickly to start with what are my core ingredients. right? And balance your core ingredients first. And then once I balance those core ingredients, then I can think maybe it needs a touch of that. Maybe it needs a little something there that is missing from it. But it's sometimes we overcomplicate it. And don't get me wrong, I have maximum respect. I've seen some very complicated cocktails that have just been mind-blowing. And I'm not underestimating some of the stuff that bartenders have done out there. But I mean, sometimes you can make something very, very simple, and it works.
From simple ingredients. Not this.
Who was it? Was it Lizette? Was it Lizette said that she liked my was it you, Lizette, with the sorrel and port?
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, sorrel and port with the rum. Yeah, and it was just it's nothing complex. It's just two ingredients, two different tastes.
I've got another one which is a chocolate rum that I have, which is simple. It's just the chocolate rum, coconut milk. So before you do that, you muddle 3/4 of a banana in the shaker. You muddle it, then you pour the chocolate rum, pour the 50 mils of rum, 50 mils of coconut milk. You shake the hell out of it to get all that banana going through, and you just pour it in crushed ice, and you garnish it with 2 slices of banana and grated dark chocolate or just chocolate.
That would do so well here. I'm in my chocolate room.
It's very simple.
So anyway, guys,
it's very nice. I give you that.
We can have a final
breakfast.
We've been on live for 2.5 hours, so I'm going to call it to an end soon. So everybody, if they want a final word, and then we can reconvene again on if you want next week Sunday or the Sunday after. It's up to you guys what you feel is the frequency you prefer. But a final word, Manny.
I would just say we've looked at some really interesting things. Let's just try and see how we can engage the younger people in the Caribbean with bartending and the drinks industry as a whole, and make it an option for them, and then that's going to breed them to have the conversations there, and it will create a culture that will eventually come over here, and it'll be stronger for the whole industry, around them.
Okay, Mark, final word.
Yeah, it was just nice. Well, firstly, nice to chat to Lizette. I probably haven't talked to you for a long time.
I know.
And and it's nice to see make that connection to somebody who's kind of living rum in the Caribbean in a way that none of us
are at the moment. Yeah,
none of us are, and so I appreciate that in terms of Lizette's perspective on culture and the importance of kind of not making it too complex, as you were saying. Look, you just need to get people interested and let them own it. Just give them the confidence that. Happy to continue the conversation anytime. Just glad to chat, man.
Kelvin, before you go, before we lose you, we've lost him.
You planned that one. You planned that.
He has been the best, hasn't he?
Yeah, Lizette.
The best. I'm so glad it hasn't been me with the technical problems. For me, I think Manny just said it so well. It's just about connection, continuing the dialogue, and keeping the Caribbean included in everything that you guys are doing. We over here appreciate that you're extending our culture. And your culture, you're extending it in a really positive light that other people can see. Don't forget you're part of it, and as I said, we appreciate. Keep it going, Roger. I think it's a great idea, and it enriches us as well, because
I think one of the things that we could actually do as well with these whatever we want to call it, podcast or whatever we call it, live Facebook, is if we could actually find a way to get more Caribbean people who are interested in the bartending community to tune in as well. Yeah. And I'll reach out to the likes of Lisa and Antigua and just see whether we can get more of them who've got he said Barbados has something. So if we can get more of them to tune in and get a different perspective on the whole culture of bartending and where you can go with it and what you can do, and the fact that you know, it's not necessarily a dead end job. So I think we could actually help to raise the profile in the Caribbean just from having these regular talks. So so thank you very much. We've been on the phone chatting for 2.5 hours. I'll put out the next post and I'll get you guys decided on the next topic. So watch this space and we'll give you the next topic and the next date. And look forward to having another conversation with everybody, not just with you guys, but with the wider community. So take care.
Take care.
Bye. Good to see you all. Bye.
Yeah, man, respect, neighbor.
Hey.